Good evening, and I think that is us in full swing. Good evening, welcome to Talking Teeth Thursday. Oh, light is just about to come down on my head, which is not a good look as I get massacred by a light. No, anyway, welcome. It is Thursday yet again, and my goodness me, we are into the second Thursday in August. Where has the summer gone? I hope you had some sunshine today, and in many ways I hope you're out and enjoying that sunshine, and you'll maybe catch up on this later. But for those of us our skies are grey. I think we've got rain coming in from the west, so it could be a wet night, but you know something, we're here, we're going to make the most of it, because it's what we do on a Thursday evening. We talk teeth. If you have never been here before, welcome. I am Lee, and I'm an oral health coach at Growing Smiles. Our goal is really to help you, help yourself and your family and those you care for have a healthier smile for life. And I think in this day and age, at the minute, certainly in the UK, is a real challenge to access dental care. So prevention and taking control of your oral health and your family's oral health is more important than ever before, because by and large, the most common dental diseases are preventable. But that's down to what we do. It's not anything else. I mean, it's more important what we do every single day than what the dentist and the dental team does sporadically when they see you. That's what really makes the difference. And I say, by and large, most common dental diseases are preventable. I want you to hold that thought. And this is one of the reasons why I wanted to look back, going back to school now and not the last week in August, because I want you to have time to think through, you know, can you plan things a little bit better? Can you get yourself organized, that you can get the kids into a routine, that this is what's going to happen, this is when it's going to happen, this is how we're going to do things this school year. And I'm sure you've had the conversations, and you will have the conversations that, you know, you take your uniform off when you come in from school and you fold it up, or you know, wash your hands, you know, when you come in, whatever it is. There'll be routines that you are wanting to instill in your kids going back to school, that, you know, they pack their school bag the night before, that they put stuff in their school bag, that they have their PE kit ready if that's what they need, and have it sitting out ready to go the next morning. There's so many bits and pieces to do. Now bear with me, because I've just left something over there. I'm just going to run over here and grab it, because in my infinite wisdom, you know, I said it to somebody earlier on today, I always think I'm more organized than I ever am. But you know, we all have great intentions at this time of the school year, and this time of coming up to school, and the schools in Scotland are going back, I think, next week. You know, so different areas in the UK, children will be going back to school. If you're in the US, again, many schools go back early mid-August. So you're all in that frame of mind. If you have children that you're thinking about, right, okay, new school term. So the obvious thing is new school shoes and uniform, okay? But, you know, you think about the PE kit, great. But what else do they need for PE? Do they play a contact sport? So whether that be rugby or boxing, there's lots more different types of exercise now down at school. Hockey, you know, martial art, all sorts of interesting things, judo that kids get into. And do they have a form-fitting mouth guard? Now, I don't mean one of your boiling the bags over the counter. Do they have a custom-made mouth guard for their mouth? And these are the sorts of things I want to make you aware of and start to think about, because it is all about planning ahead. And you know, I mean, I used to be terrible when the kids were both at home. We were both working, everybody was going in different directions. And I used to say getting out in the morning was like a military operation, you know, everybody had to be at certain places, you know, and there's certain things that you have to sort of have a little bit of leeway with. Well, whether that sort of is that, you know, go and brush your teeth and you leave them to it, but then you sort of pick up the slack in the evening and you brush your child's teeth last thing at night. So I say there's things like that. I just want to give you enough time as you get ready to go back to school to actually stop and think about it. Because you really should build good oral care routines, you know, into your daily routine, into your lifestyle. And I think, you know, it's becoming more difficult to get children to eat at meal times only. It's getting more difficult for them not to have access to vending machines, shops on the way to and from school. So, you know, you give them pocket money and what do they do with it? You know, and I mean, I've heard great stories from my kids over the years as they've got older about how they used to trade their healthy breaks with other kids and stuff. But, you know, you do what you can as often as you can and as consistent as you can. So if you do things consistently, it then becomes habit forming. And that's what we really want. We want our kids to have healthy habits for a healthy life. And sugar is the plague to us all, and it's causing us all increased weight and increased diabetes and health related issues that are connected with weight, but it also is increasing our risk of tooth decay. And if you've got tooth decay, you know, there's consequences to that, and that might be time off school, it might be broken sleep, it might be time off work, it might be money to and from dental appointments. So there's a whole lot, and it might even be dental treatment in itself, because you may not be able to access health service treatment. So I say there's lots and lots of exciting stuff going on at the beginning of the school year, but there is also stuff that we need to stop and think about of what's best for us and best for our families. So pardon me, let's take a wee look. I'm going to share my screen because I do like a picture. You know what I'm like. I'm easy to predict. If nothing else, I'm consistent. That's about all I can say. I am consistent. I do the same thing every time, pretty much. So let me see if I can get this. I think that's us. Oh, has it come up? I do not know. I think it will. So let me see. Let me get there to where I want to be. Oh, here we go. Right. I'll move myself slightly out of the way. So it's that time that we are starting as parents and carers, and you may be a foster parent, you may have adopted children, you may be caring for grandchildren, you may be looking after children in a whole variety of settings. But, you know, one of the things that you want to do before you get as far as getting back to school is that dental visit. Okay, it's really important. You need to give yourself enough time to get the appointment and then get your child there at a time that starts, so that you can then plan ahead for the new school year, knowing, right, okay, that's the teeth box checked and that everything is hunky-dory. And one of the best things about going is actually you're going to get advice about looking after your child's teeth. And, you know, what I always suggest you do is do not leave a dental practice without having your next dental appointment in place. And that might be 6 months, it might be 9 months, it might even be a year away, but put it in the appointment diary. Then you have it, then you're all set for your next dental appointment. So while you know you're looking at the school shoes, you're looking for the uniform, don't forget about the investments in not only your child's oral health, but their overall health and well-being. Because, you know, if they have lose teeth early, new teeth are going to come up in the wrong place, and they can get teased, and that can affect them emotionally. So there's lots of things that, you know, we need to think for our children, because it's not something that they really should need to consider. So time, certainly planning ahead at this point, could save you an awful lot of grief in the longer term. So with that in mind, I sort of just brainstormed a wee bit with us around here over the last day or so. I'm thinking, what kind of things affect, or should we have some sort of cognizance and think about, you know, as the kids are heading back to school? So some food for thought: morning routines, bedtime routines. Are you there at bedtime? If you are somebody that works shift, you may not be the person that's putting your child to bed. And if that's the case, you know, is the bedtime routine changed? If they're with mum maybe one night and dad another night, do the routines change? Do they have toothbrushes in both places? I mean, if they stay with grandparents one night, is there a toothbrush there? Is there toothpaste available? So that is suitable for your child. So it's just food for thought. Morning routines, again, depending, do you work shifts? Are you the person that's getting them up and getting them organized out? And like, what about lunches and breaks? Are they going to have school dinners? Are they going to have packed lunches? What are they going to have as break time snack? Do they have access to tuck shop at school? And if so, what kind of a tuck shop? What kind of foods are the options there? Likewise, is there a vending machine in school? And we joked for a long time. My kids went to big school. They came across vending machines, and you know the irony of it all. A bottle of Coke was cheaper than a bottle of water. It used to drive me round a twist, because we had tried so hard for our kids to be good water drinkers, which blessedly, thankfully, they still are. But you know, it's real. Those are the challenges that you come up against. So do you not give your kids money? Well, if they're going to buy lunch in the canteen, well, then what do? They'll need money on their card. You know, it can be a real challenge. Who does actually do the childcare? And if you know they're being left at granny's in the morning, where do they have breakfast? They have breakfast with you. Do they have breakfast with granny? Do they have a second breakfast? And if that, what was that for? And you know, were you relying on granny then to get their teeth brushed afterward? Well, you know, my theory is always first thing in the morning, you know, you brush their teeth first thing before you eat, and then it's there, and then you know you're organized. Do your children take medication? If they take medication regularly, do you need to think about when's the best time to take that medication? If it's just sugary syrup, that's definitely looking for a mealtime. If your child has extra care needs, again, you know, depending on who's looking after them in these during these school routines, you know, do you need to have a special type of toothpaste or special toothbrush in wherever your child is likely to be brushing their teeth? Dental visits, have you got one organized? That is really important. Lift the phone in the morning, try and get your children a dental appointment, because they're going to have a look at their development, and they will make sure that they are growing as they should be. They'll make sure they're cleaning what they should be. They'll spot any signs of disease very early. So really important for that. Also think about their general health. Is your child healthy? Do they need any of their vaccinations updated? Have you got their medical situation under control? So if they're diabetic, that's going to have an impact on their mouth. If they have epilepsy, again, there's some medications that can have an impact on their mouth. You know, do you know what those are? And do you know how to actually counteract those extra challenges? Vaccinations, again, well, we know older boys are now also being offered the HPV virus, HPV vaccination. And that is really important because it is a big factor in mouse cancers in the future. So all these little things, you know, you stop and you think, well, actually, is my child fit and ready to go to school? So physically, are they well? Mentally, is their head in a good place? And we've seen these huge waiting lists for mental health care for child and adolescents. So, you know, if you can teach your children resilience, if you can teach them some mindfulness and coping strategies, you know, that's going to go a long way when they go to school. And you might say, well, what on earth has that got to do with your teeth? But, you know, children who are stressed will often grind their teeth. They will bite or chew the inside of their cheek. They can end up with a very dry mouth. So there's lots of things that your mental health and physical health are connected to your oral health. And inflammation in one part of your body will trigger inflammation elsewhere in your body. So, you know, being healthy as well as keeping your mouth healthy is all good stuff. Do they do after school activities? What are those? Who do they do with? Do they eat with those things? Do they need a mouth guard? So lots of food for thought as we go through this evening. So, you know, who does collect your children after school? You know, there's always different things that we need to think through. And let's face it, by and large, it's usually mums that do the thinking. Now, dads, if you are the prime carer, hats off to you. And many fathers are absolutely phenomenal. And I know my husband and the kids' father, you know, it was brilliant, you know, because he was there. And I used to say when our kids fell over, they didn't always have to have me. They were just as happy as daddy picking them up and rubbing them down. Plaster might have gone on a bit wonky like a donkey, but, you know, we managed okay. So, you know, dads, hats off, whoever is caring for your child. Let's have a look at this step by step and see, you know, why oral health is important. Because, you know, something, if you don't stop and think about it, nobody else will. No, I've just lost myself, which is not unusual for me. Okay, so Why do you really need to consider your child's oral health as you get them ready for the new school term? And I'm not just talking about younger children, I'm talking about older children as well, because their needs and challenges as far as oral health will be different, but the same common dental diseases are going to be challenging them as much as they are challenging younger children. And I often say once they get to secondary school age, they get a little bit more independent. They get to make choices more. They tend to have more disposable income, so they tend to have more in the way of money that they can choose what to do with it. And that's where, you really want to have instilled healthy choices in your kids as far as possible, at least guide them. And it's about, these 8 and 10 NHS dental practices are not taking on children and young people as new patients. This is where our challenges are. 1 in 10 local health authorities in England do not have any practices taking on under 16s for NHS treatment, despite the children being in full-time education and the fact that they're entitled to completely free care on the health service. There's about 200 practices in this particular study said that they would take on a child under the NHS only if a parent had signed up as a private patient or a planned patient. Now, I don't need to say the state of access to dentistry as being pretty horrific, but something, what you can do, it's all very well saying, well, I can't get a dentist, I can't, but what we can do is take responsibility for our disease and actually do all the things that we possibly can to reduce our risk of disease and being able to take control and manage it so we don't have problems, so that we don't have pain unnecessarily. There are incidents that, yeah, you absolutely, a dentist is your only option, but if you do not have access or only very limited access to dental care, you want to be doing everything you can to prevent a problem arising in the first place. So what are you going to do if they have toothache? What are you going to do if their gums bleed? That's going to mean time off school, time off work. You're going to have pain management, possible expenses, say to and from treatment, and even resorting to having to pay privately for your dental treatment. All are things that we could all do without. Never mind the impact to your child at school, no matter whether they're 5 or they're 15. Pain is exhausting. It impacts their ability to concentrate properly at school. The whole quality of life is affected by chronic pain. And I was talking to somebody recently who had their child was being referred to the community dental service because they needed an extraction under dental anaesthetic. And the waiting list, I think, was nearly 18 months. How does the family function with that? So, it's way better if you can to prevent the problem in the first place. So I'm going to go through my wee post-its that I had in the post earlier in the week. So you've got the uniform, you've got your PE and your sports kit, and have you considered that your child is playing a contact sport? A properly fitting mouth guard is an essential for your sports kit. And I mean, the thing is, speak to your dentist, you need to be able to get one that fits properly. And I love, this was, I think it was Britain's Got Talent. This up here, this image of these, they were kids on scooters and they were doing all sorts of tricks. And now somebody's going to come back and tell me they were BMXs or something, and I stand corrected. But the great thing I thought was these kids all have properly fitted mouth guards as part of their protective gear. So they have their helmet, they've got their knee pads or elbow pads, and they've their mouth guards. So really important to remember that. Now, if your vision of having a dental impression to get a mouth guard made or anything like that is one of those big gungy Aldin impressions, like putty stuck in your mouth in a huge tray, you might be very pleasantly surprised. Scanners have made such a dramatic difference to getting pictures of the mouth and getting models of the mouth. So these are 3-dimensional scanners, and this is the scanning tool here. And you may well find that one of the dental nurses can do this, or the hygienist or the therapist, and they do this. And they actually, this gives a wonderful 3-dimensional image. And if you haven't come across any of my orthodontic journey, go into our YouTube channel and you see one of the early ones where I had a scan done. That was my first experience of scanning. Boy, was it way easier than having a huge mouthful of impression material. Much, much easier, that was for sure. Get that out of the way. So, dental scanners have made it a lot easier to get the perfect fit. And yes, it is an investment, but studies have shown that sports-related dental injuries account for about 600,000 emergency room visits every single year. And if you use a mouth guard, a lot of this can be prevented. And I have seen the consequences. Somebody gets an elbow in the mouth, or the wheel back with a hockey stick. And you break a tooth, you have the tooth shoved up into the front of the mouth, there's blood everywhere. I have seen my son's tooth, he got caught at a football match with, I'm trying to think, it was a fist or an elbow, or something like that. And I mean, it looked horrific. And he actually fractured a tooth. And yeah, it happens. And that was me shaking my head afterwards, going, you wouldn't wear a mouth guard anymore. He was late teens at this point. Whereas when he was younger, he did wear a mouth guard. So, custom-made mouth guards are better fits. They give far better protection because they're built around your mouth, so they cover all the bits that need to be covered, and they function much better, and they're much more comfortable. And if you look at any of the professional sports, contact sports people, they will all be wearing custom fitting mouth guards. It is an investment, but it's well worth it. Now, let me have a look and see here. So what have you got here? I am now, at this point, we are going to look at visiting your dental team, because it's not just about a mouth guard, it's about so much more than that. So what I'm going to look at now is what your risk is, and then what you can gain from actually getting a dental appointment. Let me move that out of the way now. So your dental team are going to look and see, are your teeth healthy? Are your gums healthy? Is your bite correct? So are you biting together correctly? So your upper teeth bite properly over your lower teeth? Is there any signs of tooth wear? And, with young adults in particular, it's really important for signs of acid erosion. If there's sensitivity, tell your dentist. If they're breaking out in ulcers all the time, tell your dental team, well, they keep getting ulcers, because there may be a very simple solution, like switching your toothpaste and coming off something that has sodium oil sulfate in it. Does your child suck their thumb well? Is that having an impact on tooth development? How do you break that habit? Are they biting their nails all the time, or chewing a pen or something like that? And are they making grooves in their teeth? Your dental team will do an overall oral health assessment. They will look at every aspect of your oral health, the soft tissue, tongue, your lips, your teeth, your gums. They will probably take x-rays to see that the developing teeth are growing where they should be, because quite often there are developmentally missing, congenitally missing teeth. So we often think of some people don't get wisdom teeth, but there's quite often some people don't have a premolar, which are the wee ones at the side that replace the baby molars. Some people will not have an incisor. And then conversely, you have people that have too many teeth, and they can be growing in all sorts of directions. So really, really important to visit your dental team and make sure your mouth is doing all the things it should be doing. And one of the key parts of that is getting advice about your home care routine, which is very personalized to you. And we can support you in that. So, if they're short of time and you want more information, we can often have dental practices that would refer their patients to us for coaching for oral health advice and improving their oral care routine. So let's look a little bit more at that dental practice, that dental team. What actually happens when you're visiting the dentist? So we said a bit about mouth guards. I'm not going to go back over that, but your child will have their mouth looked at, and what they may well look at is what other things that they can offer to enhance your oral health. One of the basic things is fluoride therapy, and this is covered under the health service, that twice yearly fluoride varnish therapy. Now, in some places across the UK, they have fluoride varnish programs where dental team members go out to schools and apply fluoride varnish to the children's teeth. There are other ways of applying fluoride around the teeth. Some of them are trays, like this one up here. This is like foam, custom foam tray. Actually, one of my favorite ones, because it also has xylitol in it, and the xylitol and the fluoride work synergistically together to enhance the uptake. So there's those. Something else they may well talk to you about is fissure sealants. So often we think of the first permanent molars as being the teeth tooth fissure sealed, because classically because they come back into the mouth and grow into the mouth behind all the baby teeth. So often people mistake them for a permanent tooth. They usually come in around 6 years of age, but they come in behind there if they've got deep pits and fissures. And if any tooth have deep pits and fissures, they're going to be harder to keep clean. So look at all these little crinkly bits where food can stick down in there. It's also very hard to get toothbrush bristles down in there. So what they do is they flow a little plastic type material over the tooth surface, and basically the colour in the crinkly bits. That's how I've always described it, the colour in the crinkly bits. And instead of having deep pits and fissures, you've got smooth pits and fissures. And what do we know about teeth that have smooth surfaces? They are less likely to decay. So we know that you get less likely to get decay in the smooth surface of your front teeth, and on the sides of your back teeth, much more likely to get decay on the biting surfaces because they're hard to keep clean and food gets stuck down in there. So pit and fissure sealants are a great technique to it's another part of that preventive package. They're a great technique. They're very user-friendly, it's very simply done, and it's a great technique to introduce children to operative dentistry, and it's also a great way of preventing cavities forming further down the line. So, it's a really useful thing. And if you go into the dentist, ask them about, can I get fluoride varnish? Can I get fissure sealants? Are their teeth ready to fissure seal? Because sometimes you need to prompt. Dental practices are busy places, and sometimes people don't remember all the options that are there. But they will certainly give you advice about brushing your teeth, how the teeth are developing, so you can see how the permanent tooth there is sitting in behind. What are we going to do about that? And what your dentist will want to do is monitor how those teeth and jaw develops, and make sure they're referred on to an orthodontist at the best time, which is going to suit your child best. So let's look at food and drink. Oh, goodness me. This is such a challenge these days. And I've been touching on this on and off for weeks, nearly every time I'm doing talking to. Food and drink. We're living in a cost of living crisis, and food is expensive. Drinks are expensive. Tap water is dirt cheap. You turn the tap on, you fill the bottle. And I am a huge fan of kids drinking water. And if you get them into the habit of drinking water from early on, that is just normal. And it's a great thing for them to take to school, because it's great brain food as well. It helps with their hydration. It helps with their concentration. It helps with their skin and their hair. So as they get older, and particularly girls and boys who are becoming much more aware of their appearance, plain boring tap water is the best thing you can be drinking on so many different levels. It's often the thing that schools will be happy for them to have sitting out in their desk is a bottle of water. But the aim is you're trying to keep sugar in food and drink to meal times only, and avoid them that hour before bedtime, what we call the golden hour before bedtime. You want to plan ahead for healthy break time and after school snacks and healthy lunches. Well, if they're having a school dinner, they're having a school dinner. That's pretty standard. And the schools now have guidelines on healthy eating policies. And it's about encouraging your children, if they have choices, to make good choices. And as I say, don't forget the water bottle, and that can be a thing. Let's pick your water bottle for school this year. It doesn't need to be anything snazzy. You could even take one of these bottles, and if I had got my act together this week, I was going to paint this and decorate this, but water bottle. And if they're not keen on warm water halfway through the day, stick it in the freezer the night before, lift it out when it's cold, put it in the sock so it doesn't make everything else wet, and then you can carry it around the school. A really funky sock too, well, not one that has been worn, I hasten to add. But food and drink is dead easy for me to say. It's not so easy to do. Bottled water, I say, is cheap and cheerful. Look for no added sugars for snacks and breaks. Try and negotiate at this stage, what are we going to eat and what we're going to drink this school term. So the rule of thumb in our house was our kids had a sweetie day. It was a Friday, and on a Friday they could eat whatever they liked, and I was not meant to get worked up. Sometimes I did get a little twitchy when they found those huge gobstoppers, those huge big balls that which could hardly get into her mouth. And they used to wind me up terribly about that. But I was not allowed to say anything on a Friday about healthy eating. So a Friday was treat day. I think this is something that we've all got into a habit of grazing, that we don't eat necessarily proper meals at meal times. We sort of snack in sort of basically constantly. We don't stop and really focus on our food. So if you can encourage your kids, even at this stage of the summer, to sort of eat at meal times, they maybe will not be looking for snacks at other times in the day. And I think it gets very confusing for parents with small children, because the guidance is 3 main meals and 2 mini meals. But those mini meals are not junk food. They're not sweet treats. They are nutritionally sound food. So it can be fruit, it can be a piece of wholemeal toast, it can be something like that, bit of cheese, but it is not junk. Vending machines in school are a challenge, and while they say they have healthy alternatives, some of the healthy bars and nutrition bars that you see are so laden with sugar. They're also tend to be very sticky and chewy, so they hang around the teeth for a long time. So not necessarily the healthiest option, but at least if they've got the bottle of water and they drink the water as they go, it's helping to buffer and rinse things away from the mouth. Because carrying fruit to school, let's face it, have you ever taken a banana to work? Unless you've got one of those nice plastic things to carry it in. I mean, it's black and blue by the time it's got through the door. Never mind if you get by lunchtime. But what I do want you to do, and I'm going to put the links up afterwards, is have a wee look. Child Smile is an oral health programme based in Scotland. Other parts of the UK have similar programmes. But the Child Smile website has fairly recently been updated, and they've updated their guidance things. So there's lovely snack ideas for children on that. There's ideas for drinks for babies and young children. Again, just it just gives you an idea of what's going on. Also gives you a meal and drinks diary. Now, if you're like me, and this is, I shouldn't really admit to this at all, but this is the sort of random thing I do, is when the family are coming to visit, even now, because we have the grandchildren coming as well, nothing I like more than a list. So I write myself a table of what days, who's going to be eating. And look, you've got options, they've got choices of breakfast, lunch, dinners, side dishes and snacks, no less. And then there's other things about options for drinks at the bottom. And when we were all at home, I used to be so ridiculously well organized. The kids could go nearly about 10 days, a couple of weeks ahead and see what mother was making for dinner. But that's probably a wee bit OCD. But it's really good if you can plan ahead. And if you can make things like, things with puff pastry. So I make these tuna pinwheel things that the kids like. And, I put them in the freezer. But, if you get them to help you make them, they become a much more interesting option as a snack. Likewise, instead of just giving them a piece of cheese, I would have put a piece of cheese and a bit of fruit on a cocktail stick and stuck it into an orange or something, and that was a porcupine or something like that. It takes a little bit more effort, but if you plan for it as, that after school snack, that's what they'll be happy with. And I say, if you can have a very clear difference between a treat and a snack, and stick with it, because it is about being consistent. And are you the one that's feeding your children? You need everybody singing off the same hymn sheet. You want to look at the labels. What does it say? Can you recognize a high sugar, low sugar food? And again, if you go into our tips page, the whole thing about sugar and alternatives, so you can have a look there and see if that is some help to you, because it's a mindful healthy eating is a real challenge. Bottom line for all of us, I mean, these are the basic things that we want to be doing, is brush teeth twice a day with fluoride toothpaste. If your child cannot tie their shoelaces, as a basic rule of thumb, if they can't tie their shoelaces, they do not have the dexterity to move a toothbrush around thoroughly. So you will need to help them. And even as they get older, you may well need to still supervise them. That might be you standing in the bathroom watching them, or getting them to brush their teeth somewhere that you can keep an eye on them. We used to have stories about their toothbrush, only stuck it underneath the water, she didn't use enough toothpaste and all sorts. But you do need to keep an eye on them. Negotiate who's going to do what when. So, okay, you brush your teeth in the morning, I'm going to brush them at the night. And I have negotiated that with clients and patients in the past. So, you brush in the morning, mom's going to brush them at night. That okay, work this out. It's great if you can get a toothbrushing chart, but you want to brush last thing at night before bedtime and at least one other time in the day. That might be before, might be after breakfast. And again, that one you may be the one that you have to be a little bit more flexible on, depending on your family routine, because ultimately this has got to work for you. It's all very well me saying it, but unless it works in your house, it's like pointless exercise. If they're over 7, you want to use toothpaste with between 1350 and 1500 parts per million of fluoride in it. Okay, and again, that's the INSI writing that you will find on the back of the toothpaste tube in INSI, and you can't actually see it there probably, but it's on. Oh, yeah, it's there, just right down in there. Not probably see it, but have a look and see how much fluoride's in your toothpaste. Big one is that you want to spit out after brushing and don't rinse away with water. The last thing that you want to touch, you're touching your kids' teeth when they go to sleep at night, is toothpaste, fluoride toothpaste. So it's going to work for you. And you might need to work out how best to actually remind them. Do you need to set the toothpaste and the toothbrush on top of their pajamas? Do you need to agree with them that actually, we're going to brush your teeth downstairs before we go up to bed? If you've got everybody fighting over the sink at the same time, you don't need water to brush your teeth. You need a dry toothbrush, pea-sized blob of toothpaste, and then you can brush teeth pretty much anywhere. Rinse them out after, rinse the toothbrush out afterward. But do you need to go and put toothpaste in all the toothbrushes and then just supervise them all? Look at the Brush DJ app. Do they like music? Are they going to play their favorite song and actually brush to that? It's a great aid for toothbrushing and encouraging kids to brush their teeth. Toothbrush timers, there's plenty of them around. Oh yeah, I do have one out here, so that they do brush for the full 2 minutes and get the benefit out of their efforts. You certainly want to sort of try and eat a healthy diet, reduce the number of times and how much you have of sugary food and drink. Avoid these last thing at night before bedtime. That's because your saliva dries up when you go to sleep at night and you've lost all your buffering capacity. So also then your dental team may well apply fluoride twice a year or more, depending on how high a risk you have of developing tooth decay or tooth wear. And they will again advise you then how frequently you need to be seen by the dentist. Is that every 3 months? Is it 4 months, 6 months, 12 months? And again, that could well change. So you want to brush teeth twice a month. Get into a routine, and you can set the ground rules now. If you're going in and out of work and your kids are at home, okay, right, you brush in the morning when you get out of bed. So if you've got a teenager that get out of bed, could be 11 or 12, right, you brush them then. Last thing at night, I'm going to keep an eye on you. I'm going to help you. Okay, you set the ground rules. Who's going to brush and when are you going to brush? You may well need to negotiate that. You might need to do hand on hand helping them, or you might need to do it just completely for them. Under 7s really can't brush thoroughly, and they need a grown-up to do that. And I say, do you sort of how do you remember to do that? How do you actually make sure they're doing it effectively? Well, that's where things like disclosing tablets and disclosing solutions are really useful. So use those and actually use the disclosing solution for them to actually see where they're brushing. Better still, if you can get them to use a disclosing toothpaste. And while some of the disclosing toothpaste are expensive, so they are very effective at helping focusing the toothbrushing. So let me move. Oh, what am I doing? Hold on. Lost my place, which is not unusual for me. I want to shift on them. Next. So, food for thought. Back to this again. And this is all I want you to do this evening is stop and think. How do we keep our kids' smiles healthy this school year? What do we need to think about? You think, you've ticked the box for uniform, you've ticked the box for new school shoes. Those just always be the big things with us when the kids are going back to school. But what else? I mean, who looks after your children? Who's making the packed lunches? Are you in a really tight budget that you're having to look at your school lunches? Is there something you can make ahead in a batch and put it in the freezer? I'm a great one for lists. So make a list of the things your kids like, the things that you could have for break time or for lunch and after school snacks. Whoever's going to be looking after your kids, talk to them about what you're planning and that you're trying to have a more healthy diet for your kids this year. And this is what you're trying to do. And it would be really good to get you on board and helping and encouraging them and supporting them. Because so often, particularly grandparents, are seen as the baddies. They're the ones that give them the junk and all the rest of it. But if you have been upfront and say, listen, actually, we're trying to do some healthy eating here. I really only want to have the kids to have water. That's what they get at home. They're quite happy with that. I would really like you to do the same thing. You have then involved them, what do you think? What could we have as opposed to sweets in the way of snacks? Encourage them to think and come up with ideas as well. If your children have extra care needs, so whether it be their medication or if they've an inhaler, again, make sure whoever's looking after them is familiar with that routine. So when they've used their inhaler, they do rinse their mouth with water afterwards. That will reduce the risk of acid erosion, it will reduce the risk of tooth wear, and reduce the risk of oral thrush. If you've got a dental appointment, who's taking them? Are you all clear? Does whoever's taking them have the power to consent for any treatment? Do they have all the medical history correctly? So these are things you might want to think about. Older children, if they have had orthodontic treatment, have they got orthodontic retainers? Are they wearing them? That is my heartbreak, that they wear them for 6 months and then they got chucked in a drawer. Teeth will move again. They need to wear the retainers, and retention is for life. Look at the drinks, look at all those things that could and do impact not only oral health, but overall health and well-being. So what are the deal breakers here? The deal breakers is the balancing act. It's the balancing act between those things that increase your risk of disease against those things that protect your teeth and gums, okay? And, school-age children, often it's, the sugar, the frequency and the amount of sugars in and around the mouth. The longer it's in contact with the teeth, the more damage it's going to do. Versus that fluoride, that toothpaste, the cleaning, the oral hygiene and getting that fluoride around those teeth. And if for some reason your child is at increased risk, there are things that your dental team can do. They may prescribe a high fluoride toothpaste. They may suggest using fluoride mouth rinse and alcohol-free fluoride mouth rinse at a different time of the day to when you brush your teeth, because that way, so that might be when they come in from school, that way you've got a much more fluoride-rich environment in the mouth over the course of the day than otherwise. You may well need to help them with toothbrushing. So particularly if they have got some limitation or some special care need that you actually are responsible for their mouth care. Your dental team may well decide to do more than just fissure seal the first permanent molars. They may decide that what's appropriate is to fissure seal every tooth as it erupts that has crinkly surfaces on it, and that's a much better way of helping reduce the number of surfaces in the mouth that can actually decay. So lots of good stuff that your dentist can do. I say they may prescribe high fluoride toothpaste if your child is over 10, over 16, again, they can go higher again, and that's very much for those at high risk of decay or tooth wear, that you want to get that extra level of fluoride around your teeth. Medication wise, if you've got long-term medication, you know, talk to your doctor, talk to your dentist about making sure that is sugar-free. Really important, particularly if you end up with things like syrup or dietary supplements. And if you've got teenage kids that are really into their health and fitness and sport, that they are taking some sort of nutritional supplement, please make sure somebody is supervising that and you know what they are taking and when they are taking it, because those things have consequences. And say there's a whole group on nutrition, oral health and sport, that if you've got somebody sort of heading to that elite athlete level, you know, if you're not sure, come and talk to us, please. Your dentist may well look at how you can look at a healthier diet for life, and that's very much like the Eat Well plate. And they may well then also shorten how frequently you need to see them. So instead of, it's not, you know, we all sort of have this thing about twice yearly dental appointments. You know, you may need 4 times yearly dental appointments, or you may not need to be seen for a year, and it becomes an annual thing. So these are my top 4, and this is a post that I think I did about 5 or 6 years ago. You know, see your dentist, do the toothbrushing with fluoride toothpaste, look at the mouth guard, make sure you've got a properly fitting mouth guard if you've got contact sports, and, you know, look at the diet. So what you're wanting to do is get that balance right between reducing the amount and the frequency that sugars around the teeth versus the amount of fluoride that is around the teeth to counteract that. It's not rocket science. It's almost too simple sometimes, I think, because we're not getting this right. We're still seeing far too many children with cavities who need teeth extracted, and that's because we're making poor choices. Now, some of those choices can be because we don't have an alternative, and if that's the case, what you want to do is limit those choices that you're eating to meal times only, and definitely avoid it the hour before bedtime. And then try and make sure you've got a higher fluoride toothpaste. So you're talking something that has 1450 or 1500 parts per million that you can buy over the counter. That can be a known brand if money is tight. You know, having a toothbrush, yes, an electric toothbrush will remove more plaque than a manual toothbrush in the same hand, but it doesn't have to be an electric toothbrush. Plenty of people brush thoroughly and effectively along the gum line, every surface of all teeth, with a manual toothbrush. You know, spit out when you're brushing your teeth, let the toothpaste stay around your teeth, get the maximum benefit from the fluoride around your teeth. So I say it may not be rocket science, but it is challenging. And I think our lifestyles now have changed so much. I mean, my grandparents, my parents, even when I was a child, you know, we ate at meal times and you did not eat in between meals. You know, you didn't eat until your next meal. And I have vague recollections of my mother giving me something back at tea time because I didn't eat it at lunchtime. But we have got, our society has changed, how we eat has changed. And it's really important that we try and stop and just pause for a moment and think about, what do we want for our kids this school year? Is there something that we can do? Just maybe one thing that we can do. Is it just that we make sure they brush their teeth, they do not get into bed without brushing their teeth with fluoride toothpaste every night? But start with something small, and then you can go on to the next thing and incorporate that. So these are healthy habits for life, because when your children get up and they have beautiful, healthy smiles, they do not know what dental treatment of beyond having their teeth counted and having a wee chat involves. You know, that to me is a huge win. Prevention is definitely better than the cure as far as oral health goes. So there you go. That's my sort of feeling. This almost have been a bit of sermon from Growing Smiles this evening, but it is. I want you to think now, beginning of August. Think about what can you do to make it different this year, to help your child have a healthier smile for life, because often children don't get to make those choices. often it's the grown-ups in their life that are directing and giving them the stuff and not making sure that they brush. And I don't know that they'll thank you for it in 10 or 20 years time. But anyway, that's all from me this evening. Thank you for joining me. I hope you have, I hope it's a lovely evening wherever you are. It's getting very dark here. We were just saying last night, it's getting dark very, very early here now. Which means that we're heading to autumn, you know, something. Oh, time to get depressed at that point, but let's not go there. Listen, thanks ever so much for joining me. Would you please look after yourselves, and from your best brushing buddy, don't forget to brush your teeth before you go to bed tonight. Thanks for joining me. See you soon, folks. Bye. They'll get rid of me yet. Oh, there was me and my wee egg. Do you want to see my wee egg? I'll have to show you my wee egg. I was away and then I forgot to mention my wee egg. These are great ideas for kids, for packed lunches and things. It's hard-boiled eggs, and then they can sit and peel them. But this is my little toady egg that I am keeping for the grandkids' visit. We'll see how long this stays intact, because I do have a stamp for my egg boxes now that says Nanny's eggs, please do not throw. So we will see. But they are a great thing for kids. Nutritionally, they're a great snack. Hard boil them, they can crack them, they can peel them then, and then they can sit and eat them. So it's a great treat for between meals, and it's really good for them as well. So anyway, I'm going this time, but don't forget to brush your teeth before you go to bed tonight. Thanks for joining me. Bye.